My name is Michelle, and I'm the mother of a son with Asperger's. He's currently 11, and he's fairly high functioning. So most of the time, they're not aware that he has Asperger's until they are very aware and wondering what's going on. And I spend much of my thought and parenting on, okay, we gotta get you ready to fly. Okay, there's a lot you need to know here. And it's sort of this, I have this assumption and expectation that in order for my son to live a happy, healthy, thriving life, I have to get him to the point where he's gonna fake it all the time and be able to do everything. And it's not realistic, and it's probably not honoring who he really is. Can any of you speak to that a little bit in terms of helping me reorient what is the expectation for the average high-functioning Asperger's individual? Because it's probably not honoring to expect that he's going to be able to fake it all the time.
Jonathan, you're well-fed, watered, and rested, so why don't you pick that one up?
Okay. Thank you for that and your kind of honest question of what I think a lot of, in fact, even during one of the breaks, another parent came up to me and essentially said something very similar around this experience of having to, or taking a perspective, or this need to fix and solve and push for growth, and part of this presentation prompting these other thoughts as well about finding a balance between what is very important, those kind of let's get you ready to fly, or to kind of normalize, but at the same time to appreciate and value the person for who they are, so that they internalize that themselves and are growing up to have that sense of self-worth, that they are good the way they are. Right, and I think that it's about. I think both kind of messages are important, rather than pitting them against each other. Essentially, is that instead of saying, in my perspective, this is the expectation that is average or for everybody with this label. It's to find that balance that works for your son, and I think for other parents, I think that works for them as parents. About, okay, how do I truly value and embrace and enjoy who my child is, and at the same time, as a parent, take my job seriously of pushing you to continue to grow and develop in ways that even you might not always want to do, and it is a balance. So I think the idea though of being aware, mindful of those tensions, is really an integral part of kind of staying okay with that balance. If that helps, I hope that's a helpful kind of opinion. I don't have a prescription, so to speak.
I don't have a prescription either, but I think one of the things that people often underestimate is how much hard work it is to have an ASD. Everything that the rest of us just take for granted and do on automatic pilot, the person with ASD is having to think about and work at. So at the end of a typical school day, typical pupil with ASD is absolutely shattered. And what that means is we've got to be realistic about the time course of development, that it's not fair really to expect the person with ASD to be doing everything at the same chronological age as everybody else. And so patience really is a wonderful tool for dealing with young people with ASD, because I think if we take the view they've got a lifetime ahead of them, and it's no longer so important that you go to university at age 18 and you get one shot at it, the world has changed, and therefore we have to give people the space to acquire the skills that they need without feeling they're sort of constantly being pushed. And it's hard work as a parent, because you're sort of torn. On the one hand, you want to be protective, but on the other, you feel this urge to get the person comparable with their peers all the time, and that trips us all up, I think.
And I would also just add that it sounds like it's not only managing your expectations of what you would like for your son, but the community at large. So the expectations of the people on the ferry as your son goes up and down and does his thing, or in the playground, walking around the periphery, and sort of often parents are left, in my experience, struggling to almost prioritize where they'd like to go in and make change, so if it's around stimming and certain stimming behavior that will have them stand out, they might want to start there, but where do you start when you're comparing your son to those around you and the expectations of those other parents? It's hard to manage. So hopefully formats like this will start to let people understand these issues better and have more compassion in the community, and it's a good start to do it.
Do anyone else want to chip in on this? Okay.
I'm an expert mother panelist. Mine is 14, and I just have to say, everything you're thinking I went through. Mine is now 14, and my mantra every day is, own it, Cameron. Just own it. And thank goodness we're now growing these kids up in a more acceptable, it's actually kind of cool to be nerdy. So he's a proud nerd in the school and beloved for being a nerd in the school. I'm dying to talk to you about getting him into drama, because that's going to be hard. But yeah, just being able to own who you are, accept them as they are. And I've got a typical brother that's, oh, Cameron's such a weirdo. I said, that's what we all love about him. So somehow, yeah, it's a huge balance, and you never know how far to push them. I've got the same kid is not a sporty kid, and I've allowed him never to be the sporty kid. So grade 9, they have Frisbee golf in the first week. I'd never taken the time to teach my kid how to do Frisbee. And I had to apologize to this teenager at the end of the thing. Cameron, I'm so sorry I didn't teach you. I didn't know you'd have to learn this. So yeah, I think if I went back, I'd push a little farther on all those kind of skills. And yes, I will talk to you, Patrick, about getting him into drama.
Hi there, I'm Sue from Kelowna. I have an 18-year-old son on the spectrum, and I just wanted to comment on the comment that the woman gave back there in the room about being the parent and trying so hard to try to, I guess, help your child fit into the world of real life, I guess. And my son was diagnosed when he was 5, and so immediately I went to every conference I could go to and started reading everything I could read. And I probably, before he was 6 years old, I went to a conference, and the message I got from that conference was, if he has an interest in something, try to get rid of that interest, because that is going to be the thing that makes him different, the thing that makes him not fit in. So I came back and I thought, okay, he's really interested in maps, and he's really interested in, directions and things like that. So do everything I can to try to redirect him, not give him the opportunity to show that passion. And I remember when we would visit Vancouver, we'd visit my parents, and he would look in the telephone book at the maps, and my dad would sit there and say, wow, look at that. And I'd be saying to my dad on the sideline, stop doing that, don't do that. He's getting too interested in maps, we don't want that, and that kind of thing. But anyway, I have to say that as the years have gone on, I've evolved as a parent in many ways, and actually really want to echo what you say about finding that balance between really recognizing and really having the child recognize the great strengths and talents and gifts they have, and not be so worried as a parent about how that might be perceived in the reality of the everyday world, I guess, to go the opposite way. And I think also I have to say, as a parent, when you realize you're doing that too much, and then you kind of might change that behavior, to also not be too hard on yourselves, because really, ultimately you're doing it with the right intentions, and I've had to learn that. I've had to come to the point where I'm feeling okay about, having to move from what I used to think to kind of where he is now, and he's doing wonderfully now. He's amazing. So now we celebrate that, he celebrates that, and it's all wonderful. The other last thing I wanted to say is, this morning you mentioned about supporting families and how important that is as you look at ways for people with autism to thrive. And just one comment, I was sitting here thinking, over the years, what's really helped me as a parent has been the professionals and service providers that have, stood at my door at the end of a session and just talked to me for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, who, answered an email, who kind of shown the compassion that really that I can't really explain very clearly, but that's really been pivotal. And one of them's here right there, Sheila. So, I think those things are really, really important, that family support. So, anyway.
Can I, do you mind if I tell us? So, thank you for that. One of our mindfulness groups that we run, that I talked about, we had a parent who wrote a fantastic blog piece, completely unsolicited, for Holland Bloorview Kids Rehab Hospital in Toronto, to their blog, which is a parent blog called Bloom. And she wrote about, after participating in mindful parenting, exactly what you're talking about, what another parent spoke about, and this message, this kind of, she realized this, and on the one hand, was very aware of the pain that she felt over what she called doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of social skills training with her child, rather than seeing her child first, and at the same time balancing that with compassion and self-compassion, right, for herself, experiencing and understanding that and being kind to herself through that realization. And I thought it was a wonderful description of what you're articulating, and I think what a number of people are, and it's not about one way or the other, so thank you. It's not just a BC thing. I think this is a important universal, and it's an evolution of how we understand difference and disability and the label of autism and parenting and caring for people who have these kind of differences that wasn't there 20 years ago in as much of the mainstream as it is now, or within academia or the science of studying these topics. So thank you.
I would like to add that I really appreciate your comment about the importance of embracing the restricted interests of children, teens, and adults with autism. For example, we do know that the restricted interests can be quite challenging, but they can also be quite adaptive in nature if they are related to a topic that is academic, like science or geology or geography. And in fact, research has shown that there are higher rates of individuals with autism spectrum disorder enrolled in science, technology, engineering, and math programs in post-secondary education. So if we can embrace these restricted interests, they can be quite adaptive, have them really get involved in them so they can have that as their major in post-secondary education, and help that with employment as well. All those beautiful skills and knowledge can lead to employment opportunities. So I thank you for bringing up that importance of embracing some of those restricted interests.
I had just one point to add. I know you want to get to a question. I was reading just the other day about a wonderful semantic shift in language, and I think it was Barry Present was in his newest book was mentioning, instead of calling them perseverations or obsessions, why not call them enthusiasms? Yeah, that makes good sense.